We'll call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order on September 15th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anybody that'd like to speak under public participation? Okay, and I have nobody on the phone either. Gonna move the agenda around just a bit tonight. Number 6, the item discussing the insurance broker, we're gonna move after item 11. And that is for those that are calling in as well for that particular topic and dialing in to talk about that. And then I'm going to add another item in here. Could do it under other announcements, but we'd like to get it done up front. And we would like to call Mr. Joe Hanning up to the front if he would, please. So, those who don't know, Joe has served on our Fire and Police Commission since 2014, and he has chosen to no longer renew his term. He's served the city well in his capacity, and so what we wanted to do was give you this plaque, Joe, and it says, "Presented to Joe E. Hanning for your dedication to the City of Lincoln's Fire and Police Commission, May 16th, 2014 through July 19th, 2020. So, thank you very much, Joe.
Take a picture?
Good. I'd like to thank the council tonight for this award. I want to thank Susan Gilbaugh and Peggy Bateman for all those years that they made up the agendas for me. Thanks for Beth, who first appointed me all the way through and worked with a lot of good commissioners. One back there is Jim Levi. Jim was a good guy to work with. And you have a good chairman now, Meredith Montgomery. I worked with her for a long time. She's a good gal. And Paul Adams back there, he's the right police chief at the right time. He's the right guy.
Thank you, Joe. Congratulations.
See ya.
Okay, next up on the agenda is item number 4, and I'd like to invite Nathan Whiteman to come forward to speak on behalf of American Central for the broker for the City of Lincoln Health Insurance. Yeah, just make sure you pull the mic down, please.
All right, good evening.
Evening.
And
Everybody. I wasn't sure of the format of the meeting in terms of Q&A and introductions and all of that, so I thought I would just introduce myself and the agency first of all. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Most of you know me, some well, some not so well, but I am a resident of Lincoln, have been my entire life. Graduate of Lincoln College, graduate of Lincoln High School. After college, I did find myself in the insurance business, have spent around 11 years in the business of insurance in different capacities. Currently, I'm an agent with American Central Insurance Services, which is headquartered in Springfield, Illinois, very close to the Brant Consolidated headquarters. I spend a good amount of time down there. I do also have a local office and do a lot of my work locally here, just a few blocks away in Jim Sparrow's second half of his building. American Central's been around for a long time, since the mid-'80s, managed by Stan Travelstead, and he gave me an opportunity to join forces with him a few years back. I was an independent agent and did step in and join forces with American Central to bring a broader variety of services to my clients. And I've done that very successfully, grown very well over the last 3 years of being with American Central. We do currently service the county as well. And so if you would have any questions or concerns about our service level and capabilities, I should say, feel free to reach out to any one of the board members or treasurer's office at the county. In terms of, I don't want to just talk to you about everything that we do necessarily. We are a general service agency. We do property casualty health insurance. My focal point is health insurance, however. I am property casualty licensed, but that is the minority of what I do. 95% of my clients are health insurance clients. And I use the term health insurance broadly. So health insurance, vision, dental, life, disability, and even supplemental plans like AFLAC and other types of benefits. I do have, a good background in the benefits side of working with municipalities. I understand the challenges that you face. I understand budget concerns. I think one of the biggest things at a state, and not state, but a local government level is transparency. I'm a big believer in that. Sometimes things aren't what they seem, even, with my clients, and sometimes we have to sit down and just talk and say, I understand you want this now, but the reason we don't have it's because this, or we can do it, but here's the things we need to do to get there. So rather than, just providing a renewal and a new number every year, I feel like it's something that's your biggest expense, one of the biggest expenses, I should say, not the biggest, but certainly a burden financially, but an important piece of the employee's security. And I know that the employees look at that as a major piece of their employment, is the insurance. It's something that we should, be talking plenty about. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to degrade my counterparts. We're all in the business together. We know each other. It's this ugly business that we're in where we're all sort of after each other's, clients, if you will. And as a resident of Logan County and Lincoln, this is a group and that I've been interested in talking to for a long time. And I've just struggled to, just over the years, and not to anyone's fault, but I just struggled to get a platform to really introduce myself and say, here I am, here's what I do, I am local, and we do have the capability of servicing your health insurance plan. In terms of the health insurance and other things, the health insurance is the core part of everything, of course, but we are a full-service TPA, which is third-party administrator. We do all of our TPA services in-house, so we can manage flexible spending accounts and health reimbursement accounts and things of that nature. We do offer a variety of online enrollment resources, which is very pertinent right now with COVID and everything going on, and just keeping distance and keep giving employees access to their benefit information, their statements on their paycheck in terms of what their premiums are, what they're enrolled in, policy numbers, how do I file a claim, all of that information. We have gone all online with the county recently, actually about 3 years ago, and that's been a very nice transition. And like anything, a couple of bumps getting there, but now that we're settled in, it's very, very popular with the employees and honestly the folks at the county that manage the health plan have seen the amount of time that they spend managing paper and chasing information go down dramatically because we've consolidated everything to a cloud-based service. So that's enough about me, I think. Of course, I can answer more about who we are and what we do if you have questions, but I know that many of you probably have questions for me. So I think I'll just stop there and turn it over your way.
Alderman Keller.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Whiteman, for coming. I know you met with the insurance committee, which of course other brokers did as well. And among the minutes that they shared with us, something struck me as interesting, and I'll ask you about it. I'm sure maybe other brokers could offer the same thing, but this came up apparently in the conversation you had shared with them about how other communities have pooled together to get better rates. Could you explain a little bit more about how that works or how that might work?
Sure. Yeah, that's it's a concept that's been around for a long time, but it's really just grown in popularity here in the Midwest recently. We're definitely not the only agency playing with that idea. We do have some clients that have gone that direction. But essentially what happens is there's a cooperative or a captive issue, if you will, that you can join as a medium or large-sized group, and you're basically underwritten on a self-funded basis with other similar groups. So instead of being looked at as a small group of 20, 30, 40 people on a health plan, where, as you know, one cancer claim can wreck the claims experience just in 1 year, you're being looked at as 1,000 individuals or 1,500 or potentially 3,000 to 4,000 people. There's a lot of detail that would go into explaining how that completely works, but the idea would be that we would go out to one of these organizations that's already in existence, already working successfully. They have 97% retention rates and renewal rates, so the groups that are in them are finding them beneficial and, for the most part, not leaving, which says a lot. This would be outside of Blue Cross, outside of Health Alliance, outside of United Healthcare, and we would basically be going out and we would be purchasing our own network. We would be participating in a network of our choice that fits the doctors that we want to be in network. We would outsource the benefits, or excuse me, the pharmacy portion. So we have a little more control over what we pay for medicines. There's an ugly thing out there called a rebate on medicines that the health insurance companies do get when you fill a prescription. And, that's one of the many ways, again, a multi-tiered approach here, but even just the pharmacy piece can reap significant savings. It doesn't tend to be a one-year magic wand approach. It's definitely a strategy that a group would need to would want to feel very well educated about and also committed to a more long-term approach, because the way claims work, we wouldn't want to have a bad experience the very first year or high claims and jump out. Okay, that's the fastest way to lose in that situation. The best thing to do is to come up with a plan where we think we would be able to commit for 2, 3, 4 years in a program like that, because we may have 1 year where claims are high and we don't come out as well, but the next 3 or 4 years are much better. And therefore, the average claims spend over 3 to 4 years is lower than what it would have been if we had stayed where we were. So again, a lot of detail there. Would love to dive in much deeper with anybody that wants to learn about that. We do host, as an agency, we host webinars, we host online Zoom meetings and things where we connect you with us and also with some of the representatives that we partner with at those firms to do a very in-depth explanation of how their particular programs work, what's the risk, what's the reward, what's the play in general, why are groups that are struggling with increasing health premiums coming our direction. So again, and those are normally 90-minute calls. So, high level, it's a way to control premiums, and honestly, it's a way to have a little more transparency in where the money's being spent on what things. In addition to that, we're able to benchmark you against the norms a little bit better that way as well, because we control the data in that situation, meaning that, are the claims, are we seeing a higher than national average for ER expense, or compared to other groups that are in the pool? Why is one particular group seeing expenses that are double the normal? Well, maybe we need to do a little more investigative research in that area and figure out why. Maybe there's something we can do about it, maybe there's not. But again, the more you know, the more you can act on, right? So that's the idea behind it. It would be typically not something I would want to jump into on year one with a new group. It would be something we would jump into with the existing program in place, in this case, Blue Cross and whatever else. And we would want to spend a good part of the year probably revisiting this in smaller committees or even one-on-one to educate and learn more about it to see if it's something we would want to talk more about. I do know I've got some interest at the county with it as well. Of course, that changes every time we have new members join. So that, that's with municipalities, I can say getting the support and the buy-in to go that direction does tend to be tricky, because there's that dynamic where it's not a single decision maker, a CEO of a company that has a vision of how this is going to work and is going to push that direction. We've got to collectively, agree that that's the right way. Do you have any other questions about it at all?
Not at this time, thank you.
Sure. That's a good question.
Any other questions for Mr. Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have questions. I have more organizational in nature. Who's the managing broker for your company? Is that Mr. Travelstead? Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Stan Travelstead.
Okay. And you are, what's your position with this company?
I would be considered an agent or a broker myself. So I direct or report directly to Mr. Travelstead.
Okay. And his office is located where?
He is in Springfield.
And his residence as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Cavallo?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Whiteman, how many days per week do you spend here at your Lincoln office? Are you back and forth? Are you like all over central Illinois, or what do you,
Yeah,
a little scenario there?
the nature of my role as an agent has changed a lot, actually, with the advent of COVID. But I spend a majority of my time traveling to see clients. Of course, a lot of that has transitioned to Zoom meetings and online format, phone calls. I would say prior to COVID, probably in my office in Lincoln, anywhere from 1 to 2 days a week. Probably in Springfield, physically at the office 1 day a week, and probably a solid 2 to 3 days of commuting travel between clients and enrollments. And it's my job not only to meet with employers, but to go meet with the employees when they have claims. And so, due to the nature of that, I'm not in the office a ton. So, and that's exactly what our support staff is for, is to be fielding calls, and handling things that are immediate concerns, and then filtering things to me that need my attention, of course. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Whiteman? Okay. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You. Okay, next up is Nancy Schaub and Sarah Schwann speaking on behalf of R.W. Garrett for broker for the City of Lincoln Health Insurance. Nancy and Sarah, did you want to come forward, please?
Since we
please,
can,
please remember to speak in the mic so people can hear you.
since we can socially distance here, is it okay if I drop my mask to speak?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, we all spent a lot of quality time together last year and the beginning of this year, so I don't think I need an introduction, but I am Nancy Schaub. I am the Director of Agency Services for R.W. Garrett Agency, which is headquartered here in Lincoln. And the agency was started in 1980 by Mr. Roger Garrett, who is here with us tonight. I have worked for the agency for approaching 30 years. And while my role includes pursuing new business opportunities, my primary role is one of retention and relationship building for our 50-plus employer groups. And then I also oversee the customer service experience for our small group clients. Over the years, I have chosen to educate myself beyond the licensing requirements by obtaining a degree in life and health insurance, and I have also completed coursework to receive 6 professional designations. The city is one of many accounts that our agency has serviced for 20-plus years. We don't take the loyalty of our clients lightly and have always endeavored to provide the highest level of service. We pride ourselves on being recognized for our honesty and our integrity. In addition to our home base here in Lincoln, we also have an office located in Bloomington and a remote location in Richmond, Indiana. We provide employment for 10 individuals, the majority of who live in Logan County, and we also maintain a benefits attorney on retainer. We partner with various brokerage firms throughout the state and bordering states to provide our expertise in benefit sales and service. While we sit here among the cornfields in central Illinois in our small community, we are not small in geographic reach. Our central location allows us to represent about 2,500 individual clients, Medicare clients, and employer groups throughout the state and surrounding states, which translate to about 50,000 lives. We serve independent contractors, mom and pop shops, and large corporations of hundreds of employees with international locations. We have customers from Lovington, Illinois, to Key West, Florida, to Munich, Germany, and everywhere in between. And our group, individual, Medicare, and ancillary business generates around $3 million in revenue. We work with all the major insurance carriers for medical and ancillary business, using all available funding platforms, including fully insured, as the city is, self-insured, HRAs, HSAs, level funded, and ICHRA plans. Our agency is the only downstate agency that is part of United Benefit Advisors. UBA, as it is called, is the nation's leading independent employee benefits advisory organization. Our participation allows for local service with national clout and allows us to tap into the experience of more than 2,000 benefit professionals located throughout the country. It expands our staff to include a compliance manager, a human resources manager, as well as offering benchmarking and webinars to our customers. A little history for those of you who are newer on the council. The city was with Blue Cross and Blue Shield for many years. In fact, it was written into the union contracts that they had to have a specific Blue Cross plan for their plan of benefits. As folks retired and stayed on the plan, it became that there were almost as many people retired as there were active employees on the plan, and there were not any carriers who were interested in pursuing the risk at that time. In 2011, during contract negotiations, we were able to secure a quote from Health Alliance, and they were selected as the new carrier in July of 2011. At that time, we introduced the HSA concept to the city, which allowed for premium savings to the city, as well as allowing the employees to build funds for future healthcare costs. In 2012, we introduced a group Medicare plan, which also saved money for the city and removed the retiree risk from the active plan. Some of the retirees saved as much as 50% off their premiums by moving to the retiree plan, as well as having increased benefits. Last year, as many of you know, was a challenging year for the city when you were faced with a 30% rate increase from Health Alliance. That increase was due to $659,000 in large claims in 2019 and $683,000 in large claims in 2018. In order to negate this large increase, we asked Health Alliance to look at one more month of experience before making a final decision on the renewal. And due to one large claimant going off of the plan, they were able to come back with a 19% increase. During the meetings with the advisory committee, we also presented Blue Cross and Blue Shield as an option that would have offered savings to the city and to the employees with employee-only coverage. And we also had received a competitive proposal from United Healthcare, but due to the fact that they did not have an HMO network, it was not considered. After much discussion and many, many meetings, we were able to offer some acceptable plan design changes with Health Alliance that resulted in an overall 3% increase to the health plan. Our agency is always researching value-added services that would benefit our customers. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Schwantz.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Schwantz. I actually previously worked for R.W. Garrett Agency in the early 2000s, from 2001 to 2005. In fact, I actually had the city account back then and got to work with Mayor Davis at that time, and or Cattleman now. Anyway, so I returned, actually it'll be a year tomorrow, will be my anniversary of being with R.W. Garrett Agency, as a large account manager. I am a lifelong resident of Lincoln, graduated from high school here as well. My career, though, reflects many years spent in the healthcare industry working in HR and benefit administration, and also a bit of risk management to boot with work comp and liability for large employers. That's always been my focus, is large employers. Always willing to learn. I even ventured into the business analyst position a few years ago. Did that for 2 years, which meant I was the project manager for an upgrade for the payroll system at Christian Homes. It has 2,500 employees, as well as introducing the benefit administrative system that they had selected. So I had brought that, with that experience, coming back to R.W. Garrett Agency, with my experience as a benefit administrator, what I can bring is my experience from the employer side, as far as with benefits, with making sure that we're offering, that you're offering, asking you questions of what's going to meet your employees' needs, what's going to be the retention piece. Retention is a big part of an employer. They want to retain their good employees. Benefits is a big piece of that. Making sure that you're within budget. What are your budget needs? I've, like I said, through the years with these large companies I've worked for, I've had to work with the CFO as well as our agent that we had for the insurance company. So I'm very familiar with that process. With my previous 2 years of experience with the benefit admin systems, I'd actually worked with bswift before in a previous job. That was my first launch into benefit admin systems. I started researching after coming on what we had used before with R.W. Garrett Agency, what was working effectively or not. After some research and looking and comparing some different, there's a lot out there, by the way, we decided to partner with Bernie Portal. So we recently partnered with them earlier this summer, and we are offering Bernie Portal, which is a benefit admin system, but it also offers onboarding. That's what intrigued me the most. We have a lot of groups that actually have employee sites, different locations where their employees may work. They may be working off-site. They may be working remotely. The onboarding part of Bernie Portal actually will allow you to do the hiring paperwork online through the system. So that was intriguing to me, that because that is usually something that if you have different locations, it makes it easier for the benefit administrator to do that, to handle that, or your office manager. It also does offer the benefit enrollment platform as well as annual enrollment, so you're able to set that up and do it all online. It also has a phone app for your employees. Employees can use the phone app. We do get questions a lot. We'll get phone calls asking, double checking which plan they're on. The phone app, they're going to be able to see what plan they're on. They're going to be able to see the details of the plans that they are on. So we just recently partnered with them. Again, we are offering this to our clients at no cost to them. We were planning to introduce that to you guys this year with the renewal. Also, that does have a wonderful reporting system that the manager, HR person can keep track of the enrollments or the new hire paperwork. It also has the e-DocuSign. So if there's any documents that employees need to sign, you can actually put that out on the portal. They can sign off that they've read a document. It's a legal document that goes back to their file. It is cloud-based, secure, so there's no issues there. But that is mainly about me, and what I said, like I said, we were going to offer this platform as well for you guys. And I do have a little bit of information about the rest of our office. Is it okay if I hand that out? That's what we handed out to the union members. Okay.
In addition, I have some letters of recommendation that we would like to include, and these are marked confidential, so I would like those to go no farther than the council. In addition to Roger Garrett, who is here, the president of our company, Joshua Garrett, the senior vice president, is also here. So if you have any really hard questions, I'm going to make them come up and answer those.
So does any of the council members have questions for Nancy or Sarah? Alderman Keller.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have an organizational question too. I know last year when we had some issues that arose, we dealt with several of the agents in your company. Who is the primary agent that handles who handles the city? I know everybody has a particular role, but is there one particular agent that is the go-to person primarily for the city of Lincoln for your company?
I am the account
You are the one.
executive.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Ms. Kavelman.
So I'll ask the same question of you as I did Nathan. How many days per week do you spend in Lincoln, or are you traveling to doing with other cities or municipalities?
Travel has been very limited in the past. Oh, sorry. I have to do this. Travel has been very limited since COVID, so most of our business is done via phone or email. Certainly, I do go out to other customers, but I am basically in the Lincoln office and available for questions 5 days a week.
Ms. Bateman.
Okay, I should have asked this for Nathan too, so he can speak up. You both talked about the porthole online thing, and you did say yours was free. Nathan?
Yes, we do offer Employee Navigator. That is our platform of choice. We've got probably over 200 clients on Employee Navigator. That platform is offered to our clients free of charge. We do have a $400 implementation fee that is, of course, negotiable if it's a hang-up for anybody. As far as the level of technology, I just do want to add to our platform, since I didn't speak much about it. It is going to include onboarding, going to include document signing, going to include a tracking of an employee from the day that they step into the office all the way through their departure from the city, and therefore, and that's what most people are looking for in a platform, being able to track things from A to Z. I am familiar with the platform they're using. It is a very good platform. Employee Navigator is probably a top 3 pick as well, out of hundreds of picks. We're all in this business together and know the strengths and weaknesses of all of them. Essentially, both very good platforms. If you have any more specific questions about the differences, we can go into that later. But just high level, hopefully that answers your question.
Any other questions? Mr. Bateman.
Well, my question is, if we're moving item 6 down, are we asking these individuals to stick around so if we have questions during that discussion?
I would leave that up to the council to decide. It was the intention to allow them to remain.
I'm just,
I see no problem with them sticking around in case we had questions.
okay.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down to what is number 7 on the agenda, and number 8 as well, is Christy Kreitz from CMT. And item number 7, we'll start with that, Christy. That is the contractor's pay app number 1 to Plocker Construction Company for the Lincoln CSO improvements in the amount of $833,079.93. Christy?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Perfect. I wanted to kind of give you guys a summary of what we have been going on. It just seems like it's nice for you to at least to get an idea of what you're paying for. So we have included, and is also in the packet, a progress report that included some photos as kind of an update. That would be on page 28 and 29 of the 56 packet. The first photo showed some of the site grading that's been going on. Again, we were very detailed. You know, we had mobilization in there as well. All the erosion control has been put in place. They've completed the bypass structure and started the bypass pumping. So we do have that tie-in on the Sherman sewer. And then I thought the third picture in particular was interesting. That's basically the tie-in on the Sherman sewer. And with the folks in the picture, you can kind of get an idea of just how large the pipes are that we're tying in, and the magnitude of these structures. So you can kind of imagine how much water is rolling through there when those are flowing full. It gives you a pretty good idea of the magnitude of that. And then, like I said, it just kind of gives you an idea of the progress. They're coming along really well. The weather's been good. They are working on, again, still on the Sherman sewer. They have the mass excavation done for a lot of the structures. And they are currently, and just to give you a background, basically, they have done a full excavation. The top picture shows of the entire area to do all the structures. So that way, that was their goal of being able to deal with the water. So their plan was to get their mud slab, and basically a mud slab is not the structural piece, but it gives you a solid surface to work on top of. And if they can get that mud slab in, then they'll have a solid surface to work on before the rains start coming in. So that's kind of sort of the goal. And then from there, all of our structures will start to come out of the ground, which is the headworks, the pump station, the swirl concentrator, and all of our diversion structures. So all in all, I would say extremely good progress for only having been out there for a month. So that's kind of my update on that one. I also have the first IEPA reimbursement ready. Once we get this finalized, I'll get that to you for signature. We'll get that submitted. And EPA has approved everything that we've sent in. So we're crossing our fingers and hoping for a relatively quick turnaround on that one as well. Moving on, are there any questions on that?
Mr. Bateman?
I just want to comment, if you haven't been out by there, I know we're all begging for rain, but obviously these guys weren't. They've moved an enormous amount of dirt in a short amount of time. You should really drive by there and see how much progress has happened. Luckily they've had nothing but dry weather, and it's flying along.
Any other questions on that one? Okay, Christy, moving on.
All righty, the next one is pay application 3 on the Union Street Pump Station. That one for the $679,782.52 is primarily product that's stored and materials that are stored and ready for the project to continue, as well as the last of the concrete work that was done on the pump station. So that is where that stands. And we are, as well, I have the IEPA reimbursement complete. Once you guys approve this next week, to go ahead and get that into EPA. And as Peggy can attest, they have been turning around payment, approval and payment in 2 to 3 weeks, which is pretty fantastic. Questions on that one?
Doesn't appear to be any questions.
Perfect. Let's see, our invoice, did you want to go over any of that? Basically, on number 8, the Union Street Pump Station, that was a couple ticky-tackies of checking inventory of materials. And then number 10, that's been basically trying to stay in front of this contractor in checking submittals, answering questions, and basically just keeping them moving. Our site person is there 2 days a week checking on the contractor, and we're getting lots of pictures, so we have good documentation. And our intent on the project is to continue to provide you guys pictures and a monthly progress report so you can kind of see what's going on, so know what you're paying for.
Okay, any questions for Christie on those? Okay, so for items 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, what would you like to do with those? If you'd like to go through them individually, we can, or if you would like to put them on the regular agenda, we can. Mr. Bateman?
I'd like for them to be on the regular agenda because they are all different. You know, number 11 has to do with Fifth Street Road, so it's not part of the sewer plant thing, but I think we could just vote on these separately.
Okay, so number 7, regular agenda. Okay. Number 8, which is pay app number 3, in the amount of $679,782.52. Regular agenda. Number 9 is the invoice from CMT for the Union Street Pump Station construction from July 4th, 2020 to July 31st, 2020 in the amount of $1,781.25. Regular agenda. Number 10 is the invoice from CMT for the CSO improvement construction phase from July 4th, 2020 to July 31st, 2020 in the amount of $42,859.52. Regular agenda. Okay. So the item number 11 that is on here, as Alderman Bateman had mentioned, it is for Fifth Street, but it is a CMT invoice as well. And that is the invoice from CMT for land acquisition services for Fifth Street Road professional services from July 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2020 in the amount of $2,813.32. Ms. Kavelman, did you want to speak about this one, or are you okay?
I think with this one, it's pretty self-evident. It was for purposes of going and acquiring land that we needed for our project.
So ongoing land acquisitions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions on this one? For discussion? Regular agenda? Okay, we'll place number 11 on the regular agenda. Okay, before we come back to item number 12, let's go and have the discussion regarding the City of Lincoln insurance broker. So as we saw earlier, we had presentations from both American Central and R.W. Garrett. Was there any discussion from the council on this topic? We need to decide who we're going to go with for a broker. If you'd like, we can put both of these on the agenda for next week and vote individually, or we can decide tonight on who we'd like to offer the broker services to. Ms. Kavelman?
Thank you again. I just wanted to mention that we were told with the 4 that came before our Employees Management Insurance Advisory Committee that the broker will be doing the same thing pretty much. I mean, there will be some different things that they will be doing or they can offer, but the actual dollar amounts that they will be getting or the quotes they will be obtaining will be the same across the board from all the different insurance companies.
That's correct. Mr. Bateman?
So I can't vote because abstaining for purposes that the city clerk takes this insurance, but I'd like to clarify a couple things that are bothering me. One, we all got a letter from the FOP, and what's bothering me about this letter is in their choice in discussion about Nathan Whiteman, one of the things they mentioned was Nathan resides in the city of Lincoln and he pays taxes. Well, what they failed to mention, which is true, Nathan resides in the city of Lincoln, he pays taxes. But in their description of the second choice of Roger W. Garrett, what they failed to put in that paragraph, to be fair, is 5 of the employees that work for Roger Garrett's lives inside the city limits and pays taxes. They work there 5 days a week. They also failed to mention that it says Roger Garrett currently has an office in Lincoln, but he does not reside or own property in Lincoln. Well, if you go on the property searches for Lincoln, Illinois, Roger Garrett actually owns the building out there and pays $27,000+ in property taxes on that building, which is inside the city limits. So again, just for fairness, I wanted to point out that both of these brokers, Nathan's company rents an office owned by Mr. Sparrow, but Roger Garrett actually owns his office and pays the property taxes and has employees that live there. What intrigued me about that is that the FOP took it upon themselves to make that a bullet point about residing in the city limits and city tax dollars being used for insurance. But if you look at the payroll for the officers that work for the Lincoln Police Department, 48% of those officers do not live in the city limits and pay city taxes. They may spend their money here, but their reference in their letter was residence and property taxes. So there's 27 employees, 14 live outside the city limits. So I don't know why they made that such a bullet point when they don't reside here. The other point was, and this came up in discussions with Mr. Welch on other topics, is I don't understand why during the Insurance Advisory Committee, and I'm emphasizing the word advisory, that even after they were told that no matter who the broker is, the insurance dollar amount will be the same no matter who the broker is. Insurance companies don't pick and choose their brokers to give different prices to. The insurance will be the same, and all the brokers said that. What bothered me was that the first vote on picking a broker was a tie. So instead of leaving it up to the council at that point, there was a call for a second vote, which resulted in a tie. So evidently, they didn't like that answer, so they called for a third vote, and someone changed their vote to get to the broker they wanted. How does that work in a democracy? I mean, in my opinion, when it became a tie, since it's an advisory committee, it should have came to the council as a tie and allowed the public body that's been elected to choose the broker to represent the city for the insurance. So those are the problems I'm having. Again, I cannot vote on this, but I just wanted to bring up some bullet points that are really bothering me about the fact that, you know, we had to point out taxes and who pays taxes. You know, who pays the most taxes? I don't know. I don't know why that was brought up. And the fact that when they didn't get the answer they wanted, and, you know, I didn't ask who ran the meeting or who called for the votes, but it just, I was shocked that it was a tie, so we vote again. It's a tie, we vote again. It's like they were going to keep voting till they got the answer they wanted, or they got the broker that they were determined to get no matter what. It just didn't seem fair. So that's what I got to say on this. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So if the price is the same and nobody's coming forward saying, oh my gosh, Garrett's agency is horrible, we can't get a hold of them, I haven't heard any of that. All we heard was, we want affordable insurance at this price, and this is the number you give. So if it's all the same, why are we going through the effort to change brokers, which changed the whole chain of command, or not chain of command, but the whole, who do we get a hold of now? Even though we might stay with the same insurance company or whatever, I don't see the savings, I guess, is what I'm saying, to interrupt that process.
Alderman Parrott.
I'm just kind of curious as to how the committee decided, or who on the committee decided, or maybe it was collectively, to go through this process of looking for different brokers.
So the committee at the time decided that they would like to go for brokers. That was something that they had expressed the prior year. There was discussion, and Alderman Horn can keep me honest, she sits on that committee as well, is that certain members of that committee reached out to brokers and asked for them to come in and present those cases.
So you said, so it wasn't the committee that did it, it was a certain few on the committee that reached out to brokers. It was a committee decision.
Ms. Bateman, do you agree with that?
The entire committee did not decide to call the brokers, if that's what you're asking.
Steve?
Yes, and so it seemed that we got in a little bit of a sticky wicket last time when the committee, the whole committee, whether they could attend a meeting or whether they couldn't attend a meeting, where we had some issues with the whole fiasco that we had, last time. And it seems to me, from what I'm hearing, is that that's kind of another scenario, or the same situation that is occurring again. Why is that? I do not like this committee. It's just flagged with problems. I think as a council, we need to really look this in the eye again and think about whether we need to continue to do this after it runs its course.
Mr. Treasurer, did you want to speak?
Yeah, a couple of, excuse me, I want to take this off too. A couple of things to, first of all, to go back to what Alderman Bateman said. I think that was, you were exactly right about what you pointed out about who lives where and who owns property. I think, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I would add to that, as we learned tonight, the managing broker for one of the other companies doesn't live in or own property in Springfield, in Lincoln either, but does in Springfield. So I thank you for clarifying that, because I think that was not necessarily real clear before tonight. The second thing I would point out, though, when this committee met, they took first ballot and it was a tie, and they proceeded to a second ballot because there were very small number of votes for proposals that would not have had enough votes. So that's why the second vote was taken. There was never a third vote taken. We had one person change her vote in that.
That's a third vote, though. You could have called roll. It was still a third vote if they changed their vote.
They didn't call roll. They just asked. We had one person ask to change her vote, and it doesn't really matter because it's still the council that's going to make the decision. So, what they were voting on was a recommendation to the council. Now, whether that's a tie, like you have in football, or whether it's, somebody changing their vote, it's still a recommendation. That doesn't mean the council has to take that recommendation. It's still ultimately up to the council to make that decision, which is, I assume, why you're talking about it here tonight. And the other thing I wanted to point out, and I think this is very important, when many of you were here last year when we had, or earlier this year and last fiscal year, when we found out that the rates were going to change January 1st and they were going to be significantly higher. And I would point out the Garrett Agency and their employees here locally went went to bat for us, went to work on our behalf to get that lowered considerably, as Ms. Shaw pointed out here tonight. And I think that was a huge savings, not only for the city, but also for the employees who have this insurance.
Alderman Bateman.
So to tag on to what Steve said, so the committee meets, it's 2 from each union, correct?
Correct.
2 city officials,
Correct.
and Mrs. Bateman and Julie Landers, because they're the insurance people. So my question is this. The question was answered that the whole committee did not vote to go out for brokers. So did who made the decision without committee approval to go out for brokers? Was it the city officials? Was it the insurance administrators? Who made that decision to just bring in brokers without a committee? The whole point of a committee, I guess, is to have some kind of guidance and structure. And I'm agreeing with Steve. This train has left the rails again this year. So I'm kind of confused on how that process started. I mean, if we did it, we did it. But I guess I'm wanting to follow a process so we don't end up with the same problems we had last year by coming up with a process and following that process to get to a solution.
So my understanding, and Kathy and Peggy can keep me honest here, is that some members of that committee were not pleased with the pace at which things were moving, and so they decided to meet some of them themselves. After they had conversations among themselves, it was decided that the next step, because they felt there was a savings to be had by going out for brokers, is that they would reach out to brokers, various brokers, and invite them to come in and have a discussion with the committee. That's how that transpired.
Question.
Steve?
So they weren't happy with the pace that things are moving, but it's all going to be the same cost no matter who you go with. But I think maybe city administrator mentioned that rates aren't going to be known until October.
Correct. Well,
I thought you mentioned something about October, or we would.
The rates will be the same across whatever insurance you pick. Whatever broker you go with, the insurance rates will be standard.
So when do we know that? When do we know what the
Just
rates are?
found that out after we had 4 brokers or 4 insurance companies come before us.
I think the question that Mr. Parrott's asking is, when will we know what the locked-in rates are? And based on, and I sat through all 4 of the presentations, and we have the brokers in the room. They can speak up if they'd like, but my understanding is that they can give us preliminary numbers, but until all of the claims have come in and they know exactly what we're dealing with, they can't give us locked-in rates, and that typically happens beginning to mid-October. Is that correct, Nancy and Nate?
So
Somewhere in October, correct?
if
Nancy, can you use the handheld mic?
As far as your renewal, we are currently working on that with Health Alliance. Should be able to have that to you pretty quickly here.
When will all the claims be processed that will give you that final locked-in number?
That has been processed.
Okay.
They cut off as of August 31st. So that one is ready. However, with some of the other insurance companies, and Nathan would say the same, with Blue Cross or with United Healthcare, they have to file their new business rates with the state, with the Department of Insurance. So those are usually not available until about the second week of October for other carriers.
Okay.
So if our current R.W. Garrett will know sometime in here in the next couple of weeks or so, but a new one wouldn't know until the middle of October sometime. How is looking at different brokers increasing the pace of trying to avoid what happened last time?
I believe that they felt that it got down to the detail of the broker commission, and depending on who the carrier is, it could be something that could be paid up front, but for the most part, their commission is actually received from the carrier directly. We don't pay them a commission. That's worked into the rates that are provided to the city. Nate, correct?
Why is this committee, I mean, they're looking at commissions, they're discussing this openly, Kathy, about commissions in this committee meeting?
They were just asking the question.
So they were just asking, I'm trying to help understand, trying to help get this in my mind, how all this is transpiring, you know? So they're asking questions, trying to get into their head, is there commissions or not commissions? Trying to increase the pace by going to different brokers. Not all of the committee is involved in this. So was it the two aldermen or the two city officials, and then also our insurance admins who are 4 voting members on that, I believe, right, on that commission, on that committee?
There are 6 union members and 6 city members.
So on the 6, so was it the unions that were looking at this broker, or it wasn't the city, was it?
The unions were the one that felt there could be a savings through getting a different broker. And I will say this, I don't fault them for asking the question because they don't live in the insurance world and haven't had to go through this process. So they were just
Not about
asking
the questions,
question.
it's about working with the committee.
Well, my opinion on that matter is that it could have been handled better. I didn't find out about the whole situation until I found out that they were going out for broker, which caught my attention because to the best of my knowledge, and I shared this opinion with everybody on the committee, is that it's the council's direction that goes out on behalf of the city and pulls in individuals to have discussions, not an advisory committee. If they wanted to do that, they should have made that recommendation to the council, and then the council would have worked with them to move forward.
But it should have been the committee making that recommendation to the council, not just portion some of the committee. That's the reason we have a committee.
Yeah, yes. Mr. Bateman.
So I want to go back on the renewal part, just because I sat on insurance committees before, and I want you guys to clarify if I'm wrong. So Health Alliance is the current insurance company, correct? So within a couple weeks, you'll know what the renewal is for Health Alliance. And Nathan would be able to find that out also because it's Health Alliance, the current provider, correct?
No, he would not have access to the information since he is not the current broker.
Okay, so thanks for clarifying that. But you included and nobody else, no matter who the broker is, would know any rates from any other carrier until mid-October, because Health Alliance then has to, for lack of a better term, share that information out to like Blue Cross Blue Shield and such for them to determine a rate that they would give the city, correct? And at that point, it doesn't matter who the broker is, the price is the same. So
Nate, you
we'll
can
know
speak.
the Health Alliance renewal shortly. We won't know if we're changing carriers until October.
Mr. Whiteman, did you want to speak? Can you use the handheld mic, please?
As a member of the, it is, okay. As a resident, I've known a lot of employees over the years, and they know what business I'm in, okay? I've been approached many, many times about, and even watched from a distance as to how this has been handled. And one question I would challenge you to answer is at what point in the year are you receiving those numbers? Okay, if they're available in October, do you recall that you've been getting them in October? Have you been getting them in November? Has it been late November? Has it been early December? Are you being presented with new rates at the same time that you're being expected to vote on that for the next year? Are you giving yourself enough buffer to actually shop around and look? I understand that R.W. Garrett's role as a broker, as is mine, is to shop around for you. Okay, we all understand that is the role that we should be playing, and we should be providing with options every year. Okay, but it's my firm belief that you shouldn't be talking about this large expense in December and deciding on it in December. Okay, that's the feedback that I've gotten. Now, I don't know the history and the complete truth. I'm not saying that that's the way it's been done, but to my knowledge, some of the frustration that I know I received in my interview with the committee was that they didn't feel like the rates were being provided in a early enough in the process so that the council could decide to bring someone else in and provide competitive rates. Now, I want to clarify also with the carriers. Although it's mostly true that if we quote Blue Cross and Health Alliance and we use the exact same census information, the exact same claims information, we will get the same quote back, 100% accurate. That is not what I'm paid to do from a client. Okay, what I'm paid to do as an agent, the reason I receive a commission is not only to manage claims and help facilitate the insurance experience for an employee, but to the employer, it's plan design. Okay, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, there could be hundreds and hundreds of health plan combinations and strategies you can implement within the options that come in your renewal. If you've ever seen a renewal and seen the variety of plan options within that renewal, there are many, many, many to pick from. What I'm saying is that what one agent recommends to the city from a plan perspective may not be what I would recommend the city look at, for a variety of reasons. There may be cost reasons, there may be deductible reasons, there may be larger strategies at play. So again, I think it's unfair to pigeonhole the carriers and say that every agent's going to bring you the same quote. It's not about what gets put on our lap as far as the quote. We're going to receive the same quote. Now, what we bring back to you professionally in terms of what we recommend as far as which plans and why in a long-term strategy, that's going to differ from agent to agent. And that's really where I think that it's important to select an agent and an advisor and not just a health carrier. Okay, that's the role we play. So I just wanted to speak up about that because I don't think it's necessarily fair to speak about it that way.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes, thank you. Roger Garrett here. I take exception to the fact that the renewal has been late in coming to the city or the committee. We work very hard to get that renewal out as soon as possible. I think we look
Can you
back,
hold the mic to your a little closer?
if we look
Thank you.
back at when those renewals came in and when we communicated that to your management staff, it's always in a very timely fashion. And a very, last year was unusual. We had committee meetings going on, plus we had a very tough renewal. And Nancy Schaub and Sarah worked really hard in getting that renewal reduced from 30% to 19%, which is a hell of a job. I put together a heck of a staff here for you, to support your people. And the plans that were decided on last year after the renewals came in were the plans that the unions chose and wanted. Did they not vote on them? Yes. Yeah, so we would choose plans maybe that were different than that, but union contracts sometimes determine what plans that union wants. So that was taken into consideration. But we expect to have your renewal here really quick, and I think it's going to be a really good renewal. You're going to be really happy with it. They're with Health Alliance, not Blue Cross and Blue Shield, by the way, just as a point of record. Your current carrier is Health Alliance, and the obvious choice if you're not with Health Alliance might be Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We don't feel like United Healthcare would be a good fit, but it might be if the union would give some concessions. So anyway, just let me stop right there. I want to thank the city and this council and the mayor for your past business. We really appreciate it. We worked really hard to earn it and keep it, and we'll do whatever you want done in terms of getting a plan that works for your employees and your city. And thank you for your business. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Alderman Bateman.
So again, I'm going to reiterate that I'm not voting, but I do have thoughts that I'd like to share. And one thing I would like to clarify, and I've worked alongside Nathan when I was at the county board on the insurance committee. The one thing I want to point out from a statement that was made, though, is let's all go back a year ago. What happened, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, guess what came first with the city? We negotiated 3 union contracts last year prior to insurance renewal. Where the wheels fell off the bus last year is not till we got the renewal and not till the council voted on an insurance plan was it brought forward or made clear that all 3 unions had negotiated different philosophies in their contract on what they wanted for insurance. So the delay in voting on insurance and some of the feedback that Nathan got from my feeling only is it looked like the city didn't know what they were doing when actually we were trying to negotiate the best insurance rate for the taxpayers to offer its employees, but also try to negotiate within that bubble the 3 demands from the 3 union contracts that we just negotiated. Now, this year, we already know what them union contracts say. I had a conversation with Mr. Comstock of suggesting that the 3 unions get together to make a smoother and easier, and in my opinion, much savings for the city and the employees was to get their 3 contracts to open up and the 3 of them meet and try to suggest a unified insurance proposal from all 3 unions, which would make it much easier for the city to go out for bids for insurance, because then we would know one set of parameters that we have to meet and get the best proposal that meets those parameters. Even if we switch brokers, we still have that same problem. We may get a proposal for insurance that all looks good, and one of the unions is going to say, if we all remember right, hey, we demand a $1,500 deductible. It's in our contract. The other one says, hey, we want a PPO or whatever it was. That's where the sticky wicket was last year. It wasn't the fact that we were trying to mess with other people's insurance. The city and the city alone is at fault for negotiating 3 union contracts that didn't have the same language at the insurance section of those contracts. That is my thoughts, and that's the way I feel. Where Nathan has the advantage with the county is we didn't have that issue at the county. All the union contracts were negotiated to a correct me if I'm wrong, I think the sheriff's department just says they only pay so much for their premium, but there wasn't a deductible demand. There wasn't a PPO, HMO, whatever demand. So that's where the problem lied for last year. So I'm sorry I got on a rant, but I wanted to clarify where the problem was. It wasn't with our broker. It wasn't with the time that we got our renewal rates. We get the renewal rates, as Mr. Garrett said, the same time every single year. It's the fact that the city moved forward with the insurance negotiation with the Garrett Agency, and then and only after insurance was voted in, if I'm correct, was it brought forward that it didn't meet the union platforms, and that's where we all had to start over again.
So there was, and you're correct, and in addition to last year, the committee, let's keep in mind, This was the first year that that committee tried to function, okay? They had discussions about insurance. They walked out of a meeting thinking they were on the same page when in fact they weren't. So the city staff brought to the council what they felt the union agreed to. We voted it in. Then the unions filed grievances against the city. And so in addition to try to address that concern, we then had to deal with grievances, and we had to have discussions at the council on how to address those grievances while still providing insurance by the deadline. And I believe we even went a little past the deadline so that we could address the insurance needs and the grievances. And the council even conceded and provided HSA money to the individuals. So it wasn't a cut and dry. I've heard similar complaints, but even in the letter that we received, they don't go back prior to 2019 with the issue. It seems that there's some concern and frustration with what happened in 2019. Well, welcome to the party. We're all upset about that. And I was very vocal about it last year about this committee, but I felt that we needed to give it another year to get some of the kinks worked out. And I'm not saying that it's a complete disaster with this committee, but Kevin is absolutely right. We're focused right now on trying to deal with a broker. The bigger issue, in my opinion, and I've shared this with the committee, is let's spend this time, it's better spent focusing on what the rates are and the plans are, because that's where it's going to get sticky. Because we have 3 different contracts that we have to work within to satisfy them. So we're working with a lot of different dynamics here that make it extremely challenging to get to the end point. And then that being said, Mr. Hoblet, did you have your hand up?
Okay. Just for your consideration, I know the council is looking to avoid essentially the scenario that happened last year, and whereas it's not a legal issue, it could become a legal issue if there are grievances that arise thereafter. I think the letter that we received was essentially the letter that we received was nice, because I believe this board should be giving written recommendations to the council. However, it was the idea, I believe, that this commission would be making those recommendations. So essentially we have a union that went outside. They didn't like the recommendation or the fact that there was a tie, and then they issued their own position, which frustrates the purpose of the commission. So there needs to be, I think, a conversation with that commission to try to get a more unified front. The idea that I think this was negotiated within the contract last time for this commission, and if the unions themselves essentially step outside the lines of their own negotiated term, what they want this commission, it kind of frustrates the purpose of their own accord. So I believe there's probably a conversation that probably should happen on that commission level to have some sort of unified recommendation. But I do believe the letter that did come, I believe they actually, come to think of it, when you read it, the commission probably should be putting forth written recommendations as well. So I'm not saying that the letter doesn't have any value whatsoever. I'm just saying that those letters probably should come from the commission itself as opposed to the individual unions, because then what's the purpose of the commission?
Mr. Parrott.
Two things real quick. So why was there a second vote needed? So it was a tie, a 5-5, or 6-6, whatever it was. Why did we have to go to a second vote? What were they trying to get to? Just one broker that they could bring forward and saying, this is our recommendation?
Yes, I think we need to go back just a little bit to clarify just a little bit what Alderman Bateman said about the unions when we were negotiating last year. When we sat in all 3 of those different union negotiations, they TA'd, tentatively agreed to the insurance article and moved on. So we, I guess individually, as the negotiators for the city, thought we were TAing and moving on. Well, then after all this was going on, then they union came back and, well, they were doing their grievances, but they came back and said they had this $1,500 situation, and they had the other, all these different deductible things. They had different variances in their articles, so that threw us off again. So we only did this because I think it was 2 of the 3 unions required that in their agreement that we have start one of these advisory committees by, I think it was August 1st, I believe, of 2019. So that's why we were complying. That's why the city was complying. The other issue is, after all this is over, could we please go with maybe a 2-year broker or whatever until the next union negotiations? And I just, the reason, getting back to your question, when it was, 6-6 was the vote. Acting mayor couldn't be there that day. He sent his proxy. So it was 6-6. And it's, once again, we talked about it, and also acting mayor was not at the first meeting we had when they wanted to know why this committee, this advisory committee, wasn't the be-all of everything, that whatever they decided, we decided in this committee that it would go forward and that would be the answer, and the city council would slide it in, whatever they came up with. I explained to him that wasn't how it worked. So that's what this has come down to. Again, it's we against they, or they against we. It's like we're back in union negotiations again.
One point I'd like to make is typically, even if it's from a department head that's worked with vendors before, or the city ourselves working with vendors, if we felt like the vendor was doing a good job for the city, it's usually been the recommendation, whether it's from a department head or just, one of our, vendors that subcontract out to, that we typically stay with that particular entity. I thought that R.W. Garrett did a wonderful job for us last year and for the previous years, especially as it was mentioned, they went from 30 down to 19, And if the people sitting on the committee representing their particular individuals, they don't see, how that's benefiting them and the city, then I kind of wonder, why did this all happen the way that it happened? And it wasn't the committee that made the decision to go out for more brokers, that it seems like it was union representation doing this on their own, who's had conversations, I think, with American Central, Nate. This seems odd and weird to me. It seems like it's not right. It doesn't pass the smell test to me. My recommendation, and I'm sure that American Central and Mr. Whiteman would do a phenomenal job as well, but I don't see a reason to change from R.W. Garrett.
So, just one thing I want to clarify before I share my opinion on this matter. Ms. Cavalman is correct. I did have a meeting came up, and I shared my vote by proxy last week, and that was expressed. The previous meeting that she mentioned I was not at was because I was not given an invite to the meeting, and I had 1 hour's notice. It's kind of hard to move around schedules when you get 1 hour's notice. So that's why I was not at that meeting. I just want to make sure that it's clear that I wasn't skipping out on meetings. So I agree with Alderman Parrott. And I shared this with the committee. I shared it in an email when I gave my vote by proxy. I said simply this: the insurance brokers are going to be able to provide the same quotes from the carriers once they have the information that they need to go out and get the quotes. R.W. Garrett has done a great job for the city. I have absolutely no doubt that Mr. Whiteman can do a great job for the city as well. I know both of them, and I know that they're professionals. But where I go a little bit further with my opinion is this. The letter from the FOP, whether we liked it or not, and how we perceived it, I found value in it simply because it laid out criteria of what at least that union was expecting of a broker. And I said this to that committee as well, is that if you're going to start a relationship, and keep in mind, this committee is new, right? We're in our second year. If they want to have a say in the brokers and they're going to decide, I think they need to lay the criteria out for what they expect from a broker rather than just switch course because they had a bad experience last year, which wasn't anybody, like, it was not one side's fault. It wasn't the city's fault and it wasn't the union's fault. It was both sides' faults. So for that reason, my opinion is that we stick with R.W. Garrett, and I would be open to aligning the contract with the brokers in conjunction with the terms of the contracts. And furthermore, when we go into union negotiations, and the committees, they know this, the unions know this, they're going to have to all get on the same page because there are certain stipulations in some contracts which just unfortunately cause higher rates for the other members. So that's my opinion on the topic. Mr. Bateman.
So this will be my last speech on this. My personal insurance is through American Central in Springfield. I work with a broker out of Springfield for my employer. Had no problems with him. Been great. I have his personal cell phone number. I can contact my guy anytime. Whatever. I have Blue Cross Blue Shield. My philosophy is this, and I'm just reiterating what I said earlier and what Steve pointed on. I think certain individuals that work for the city and were part of the union or part of the insurance negotiations got hung up on the timelines of how the city came about that insurance rates and the policies. If you remember right, the council voted on a policy and then they had to rescind their vote because it didn't meet the union contracts. And somewhere between last January and when this committee first met, it's like they had it in their mind that that was the broker's fault. And it was not the broker's fault. It was this council's fault, 90%, of not knowing what was in each one of the union contracts. I had mentioned to Mr. Welch and then Mayor Goodman that I didn't see value, and I still don't see value, in different people negotiating the different union contracts. You have to have a central person at the table, so when something like insurance comes up, there has to be that one person that sat in all three union contracts that knows exactly what was in the previous contract, so that when that section comes, it needs to be identical or as close to identical as can be. And insurance is that section of the contract. When Mrs. Cavalman says they TA'd off on it, well, who cares if they TA'd off of it? Because the police TA'd off their section of their contract, Street and Alley TA'd on their section of their contract, and Fire TA'd their section. Well, guess what? None of them match. And I think the Garrett Agency is being piled on here by a problem that was not theirs. It was ours. It was the city council's problem. And that's where I feel that, as I said, it just, we have to look at the root of the problem. And it seems like the first year of the insurance committee, that was an absolute disaster. Nothing was done correctly. The second year, You know, I've heard bits and pieces from Mr. Welch because, you know, I sat on insurance at the county, so, you know, we have the same kind of discussions. His wife is the insurance committee person at the county, trying to get on the same page of how things work, and it just seemed like it was going off the rails again. As in the night, you know, we have a conversation, he's like, well, somebody went out and got brokers to come in. I'm like, well, who at the city decided that? You know, as Mr. Parrott said, did the entire, all 6 people decided to go out for brokers? No, they just walked in the door because a group of that committee decided so. So that if you're going to form a committee, you have to act like a committee, and you can't act like a posse out there trying to run a committee. That's just my opinion.
I'll say one more thing. The insurance company is like any company, correct? In that they deal with customers. They're going to have some customers that love them. They're going to have some customers that don't love them. That's just the price of doing business. I'm going to go a step further, and because Mr. Bateman did point this out, it is true. My wife is the chair of the insurance committee for Logan County. She works with Mr. Whiteman. Matter of fact, today she raved about his level of service to solve problems that they've been facing over at the county. So I'm saying that so that everybody knows that this isn't, in my mind, who can provide that better level of service, because I think they both provide a great level of service from what I've heard. It really just boils down to this committee has been in a transition period. They need to establish some criteria for what they expect as recipients of the insurance, and then they need to give our current broker an opportunity to meet that expectation and that criteria. And if not, then we have another conversation to say you didn't provide a quality of level service, and then we'll have another conversation as a council. I did. I shared that with the committee as well, so for what it's worth. Any more feedback, comments on this? So what would the council like to do with this topic? As I said, we have a couple options. We can, if you're on the fence about a particular broker as a voting member of the body, go ahead, Steve, if you like.
I was just going to say, since Mr. Heineke's not here, you know, it may be good to bring both up for a vote next week.
Next cow.
I mean, yeah,
Next cow
The
meeting.
next voting meeting.
next voting meeting.
So we can then have 2 line items, one for American Central with Mr. Whiteman, and the other one for R.W. Garrett with Ms. Schaub and Ms. Schwantz.
Unless some other alderman would have another recommendation or anything.
So what do we do if one comes up and it passes and the second one comes up and it passes? It's unlikely that would happen, but I'm just throwing that out there for you to think about. If you'd like to move forward with that, I'm perfectly fine with that. I have no concerns. Okay.
For recommendation.
Mr. Bateman?
Well, I'm just doing the math here. I'm not voting. So that drops it down to 7. This seat is vacant. So that drops it down to 6. So you do have the possibility of a tie, or you have a odd number of voting members sitting here right now. So if someone brings one forward versus the other, there's your voting majority. So, you know, Mr. Fleshman is on the agenda. I don't know if, you know, he's going to vote once he's sworn in, but I'm assuming not. I'm just making that assumption. I am absolutely not voting. So, you know, that drops down the number of votes right there.
Mr. Keller?
Yeah, I don't think this necessarily has an urgency that we have to vote on this right away. So I would agree with Alderman Parrott that we should wait until we have the full council represented. have this as the next CAL, another discussion, and then at that CAL, perhaps a recommendation can come as who the broker can be.
Because the rate will come due
Ms.
here,
Bateman.
so it is.
Is that
If we delay it too much, then we're right back where we got the complaints that we didn't get the renewals in time.
So the next CAL would be on the 29th. And then we wouldn't be able to vote on it until October 6th. So that gives the committee less than probably a month or so, well, not much time, to finalize the criteria for what they would like to the brokers to go, whoever that broker is, to go out for insurance bids.
Yeah.
well? Then okay, then I'll make a recommendation. Then we put on the voting agenda that we recommend R.W. Garrett for the broker for the City of Lincoln Health Insurance.
I could second that.
I mean, we can't vote, but
Yeah,
it's just
not
my
vote, but I mean,
recommendation.
I would be in agreement with that.
So is the council in agreement on that? Alderman
Yes.
Downs?
I'm in agreement with it.
Alderman Horn? Okay, so we'll put it on the voting agenda to go out or stay with R.W. Garrett for the broker for the City of Lincoln Health Insurance for the 2020 insurance year. It can be amended, yes. If something
Can be
changes,
amended, yeah.
it can be amended.
Still be amended.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item is number 12, and that is the invoice from Union Pacific Railroad for Fifth Street Track Inspection Survey on July 2020 in the amount of $189.49. Regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 13 is the mayoral appointment of Ron Fleshman to Ward 2. So, just some background on this one. Since I found out that Mr. Leith was resigning from his seat because he moved out of his ward, I have been actively looking for a replacement. I have set up interviews with some individuals. We got to the dates of some of those, and I admire them because they actually stepped forward and said, you know what, I want to make sure I do the right thing. I have a family. So they reconsidered, and I encouraged them, if they'd like to run at a later time. And so that still left that seat vacant. Mr. Bateman, I had already had a conversation with Mr. Fleshman prior, and I know Mr. Bateman had a conversation with him as well. I had a follow-up conversation with Mr. Fleshman about this, and he's expressed an interest in filling this seat. For those that do not know Mr. Fleshman, he is a former alderman. He sat in the Ward 2 seat. He was a very valuable resource in getting the city to where it's at with the sewer upgrade project. He has a great working relationship with Christy and Shannon from CMT, and we're getting ready to get into kind of the meat of these projects. He was also instrumental in helping us establish the pocket readings for the rates for sewer. So with that said, before I ask the council, Mr. Fleshman, would you like to step up and say anything to the council or give them an opportunity to speak with you?
Give him your bad penny speech.
Yeah, like many people have spoken here this evening, I a longtime resident of Lincoln, and I was on the council in 2018 and part of 2019, and looking forward to possibly. Looking forward to getting back involved in city government. I'd like to open up the discussion for any questions here or any discussion that anybody would like to bring forward.
Alderman Downs.
Hey, Ron, I just want to say I look forward to working with you, representing Ward 2. I was just out walking my dog last night past your house, and some of the people in the neighborhood stopped me and had some really nice things to say about you.
Good.
Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? One thing, not to delay the meeting any further, but some of the conversation here this evening, I do have one or two things that I'd like to say. As far as the union negotiations, the contract negotiations, and all being in the same year, the purpose of that, when we discussed this earlier, one of the purposes of that was that we would hire possibly just one attorney to be able to negotiate all three contracts. Well, I would think that if we hired one attorney to do all three contracts, that he would take it upon himself to make sure the language for the insurance part of that contract would be the same. So I really don't know what happened there with the attorney that we hired, and I think actually we got away from that and we had two different attorneys at that time frame. So that's just a little something I wanted to throw out there to the council about your discussion this evening on insurance. And the other thing that I did think was a good that we had more than one broker come forward, and I know that we've had R.W. Garrett for many years now, but it is always good to hear from somebody else when you are spending taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
And I think we did learn it, or at least I know I learned a few things this evening about insurance that I didn't previously know through Nathan Whiteman. And I think also moving forward, it could be something that we look into where possibly multiple municipalities can get together on the same policies. And I don't know if that would affect the rates. It doesn't sound like it would affect the rates, but at least we could take a look at something like that. But thank you. I guess.
Mr. Bateman.
See.
Just one more insurance. I agree with you. I have long thought that the city and county should at least get together and try. I do know where I work, every time we purchased a dealership and grew and the pool got larger, the insurance rates went down because the more people in the pool, you have a better chance of having healthier people and the claims aren't so large. So kind of like the state, everybody brags on the state insurance. Well, that's because they got an enormous pool of people that they can drive those rates down. So I do agree. I would love to try to reach out and strengthen numbers. That's something we can work on at a later date, but I think it is correct.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. So place that on the regular agenda. Okay, the next item up is the mayoral appointment of city officials to the Economic Development Grant Program Committee. So if you remember, we seated a few members to this committee previously. Those city officials that would be on there would be Ms. Kavelman, Alderman Hoineke, Treasurer Conzo, our Building and Code Officer Wes Woodhull, and myself. I did want to thank Alderman Keller for stepping in and helping us get this thing off the ground. We had several really good meetings, and his input was valuable into getting it to the position that it was for council consideration. So I just want to thank you for that. He has asked to, because he sits on other commissions as well, representing the city. So for a lack of better term, spread the love and allow some of the other aldermen to participate. So I spoke with Jeff, and Jeff said that even though he was sitting on a beach, he said he would reluctantly agree to be on the commission. So I'd like to place these names on the agenda for consideration. Ms. Kavelman. Mr. Hoblet as well. Sorry, John. Regular agenda on this? Okay, we'll place it on the regular agenda. Next item up on the agenda is number 15. It is the refinancing of GO bond, alternate revenue source, series 2014. Mr. Conzo.
Thank you, Mayor. In your agenda packet, you see what's called the hypothetical refunding scenarios. And what this is, it pertains to the general obligation bonds, alternate revenue source that were issued in the year 2014 for the purpose of financing the TIF projects. At the time those were issued, the interest rates were higher than they are now. They weren't real high, but they were still higher than they are now. They're kind of at an all-time low right now, or close to that. As a result of that, what we have from 2014 is bonds with an annual debt service cost of between $173,000 and $176,382 at the high end. So, and it's in that range from now until December 1st of 2034, which is a little while. What I was looking at, and I've talked with bond underwriters about, is the chance to refinance that by taking advantage of these lower bond rates that are in effect now and refinancing it. And you see two possible scenarios there, two options, if you decide, if it please the council to do this. One of which would save a little bit more money than the other. By refinancing it, where we level those payments out from now until 2034, be December of 2034, would be the last payment. Those payments would now be between $160,000, as you can see, and $166,000, which would be in the first year. That would save us about $146,532. And keep in mind, these are approximate because this stuff changes daily, so these are not firm numbers. The other option you have is where we take the savings up front, because right now we're in a situation, we know what we're going to receive in the TIF increment for this year. We know it's going to be $134,000. We're going to transfer about $40,000 from the general fund, a little over $40,000 from the general fund to make our bond payment. But we don't know what the next few years are going to be like. I would expect that the next couple years might be kind of rough for a number of reasons. What this option does is it lowers our bond payment to $132,000 next year, $137,000, $144,000, and then it goes back and it goes up. Not as high as it would be without refinancing. It goes up between $164,000 and $171,000, as you can see on the schedule there. Savings with that's a little bit less, $132,336. So it's still substantial savings, and I would recommend exercising that option, with the hope that some of these things that we're doing with the downtown, with economic development in general, will also affect some of the properties in the TIF district. Although I would point out those economic grants are not limited to the TIF district, but I would expect that they would have some impact there as well in the long term. But that's not going to necessarily pay off in the short term. The other thing to keep in mind about this is the council would need to draft or to adopt an ordinance. If it please the council to do that, I would have our bond underwriters work with bond counsel. Bond counsel is Ice Miller that we've used. They would draw up an ordinance that would authorize, if you were to pass that ordinance, would authorize the city to issue bonds. It would not obligate us to issue those bonds. So if the rates suddenly turn around and go up real high, and the savings aren't going to be realized that we think are there, we would not issue those bonds. That ordinance, that enabling ordinance or ordinance to authorize the issuance of those bonds, would be good for either 3 years or until the end of the term of the current council. Well, obviously that's April 30th. So if you were to pass that ordinance, if you pass it in October or you pass it November, that would be good through the end of April. If it does not appear that their savings are going to be realized, you simply would not issue those bonds. The next council could vote and reauthorize that ordinance if they see fit to do that. So where we are with it, there won't be anything to put on the agenda for next week. But if you're interested in doing this, I would contact our bond underwriters and our bond counsel and have them draft an ordinance which would enable the city to issue those bonds. Again, you would not need to necessarily issue those. And we would want to look at then if you did that, then we'd want to look at the interest rates and see where we are and decide when the best time was to throw the switch on that and actually do it.
Yeah, I first of all, I'd like to thank you for making this recommendation. I know you and I talked about this a while back, and you've done a lot of work digging into this. So anytime that we can save money for the city, especially with these particular bonds, it's worth looking into, and I would be in favor of moving forward with these. Do you need us to tell you which option you would like to move forward with, or now?
Not at this point. It would just be an ordinance for the purpose of authorizing the city to issue the bonds, and then at some point we could bring these scenarios back. The interest rates may change. They may be better. They may not be, and we would go on the basis of whatever they were at that time.
What would the council like to do with this?
We can't put it on the agenda yet, but I mean, we can. If there's consensus on this, I can have them draft an ordinance for the next committee of the whole meeting, because it won't be something they could have. Won't be something they would have ready for next Monday. So
Sounds like it looks like the council's in agreement. So although we can't vote, yeah, I would say move forward with that.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Okay, next up on the second page is item number 16. Enhancement to the existing language regarding social networking to the employee handbook. This is a topic that came up, and I asked Alderman Downs if he would take a look at this and then bring a recommendation to the council. So Alderman Downs, did you want to speak about this one?
Sure. Me and Steve Parrott worked on this together. We just added some language to the existing social media policy to state that employees shall not post speech that negatively impacts the city. Employees may express themselves as private citizens on social media as long as employees do not make, share, or comment any posting that includes harassment, threats of violence, or similar inappropriate conduct. And that kind of lists a bunch of other stuff, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, we'd like to thank our city attorney for helping with that and on.
Mr. Hoblet.
Yes, I did happen to have a chance to review this, and it does seem to pass. You do have the requisite terms within there that protects the city, and essentially doesn't overextend. However, I think it might benefit some of the members of the council if you guys could. Perhaps there was one term in there that says expresses bias. I guess maybe the idea as to what bias what exactly does that mean, so to speak. That's a pretty broad term. So just some clarification, probably. I mean, is it political bias? The bias. I mean, when I take a look at it, that seemed to be what the general area that I kind of got from there. But it's I believe it's the second bullet point. So that's the only thing that I believe that probably could use some clarification. But other than that, it seems to me that everything else on here seems to be, after review of some other municipalities and counties, it seems to be very much encompasses what those areas had as well. So that's just the only, I believe, like I say, it would benefit anyone to have some clarification on that.
So you would strike that then?
Yeah, we can do that.
I don't know if that's. I mean, we can strike it, but essentially, it's just. I mean, like I said, if you guys have an idea as to exactly what you're meaning from there, so it wouldn't need to be struck. Other than that, yeah, I have no objection to striking it.
I mean, I think we should just strike it because the rest is,
You're talking about expresses
Too
bias?
broad of a subject.
yeah.
You know, bias could be, no matter what you disagree on with somebody else, it could be biased one way or the other. It's just too broad of a subject.
Chevrolet's better than Ford's.
Right, and it's
Correct.
they to be honest, Mr. Downs, Mr. Parrott, they approached me with this at an earlier time, and I didn't catch it until a little bit later, so I do apologize for that. It's not my intention to bring this up now, with an idea to essentially call this out, so to speak. But I believe this is a term that probably is a little overbroad.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and strike that from the policy.
So another piece of feedback I got this week was the end of that second one that says, or any other protected class of individuals. So just to be clear on this one, does that, when it says protected classes, is that by state or federal statute? What governs protected classes?
I mean, there are some states, and there are some state statutes that do deal with protected classes, but there usually is a definition within that statute that defines what that protected class is. I did not look to see as to what entirety of the employee handbook as to whether or not they had a definition of protected class, but typically you do have that definition, and that definition usually is a little broad. Because a protected class, could be inferred at one juncture, and then, things change, and, some other classes might be protected and some others might not be. So it's just,
I think that's the concern.
Okay.
Is that if it's too broad, we would hope that employees would not get to the point where we even have to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get them in a situation where it's so broad and their career is on the line for a perception by one and not another, then that would potentially catch us up in some issues. So can we elaborate on that and say, or any other protected class of individuals as defined by statute? Can we go for a little bit further with it?
Yes, but it'd probably be better for us to define what protected classes are within our own employee handbook.
Okay.
We could make reference to state statute for protected classes, but the state statute usually makes reference to a protected classes within the statute itself. So they'll have a statute that will protect a protected class in context of, like, say, an action. Okay, but then they have to define what that protected class is and why they're being protected from that action. So it kind of would behoove us. I mean, we could take the language from a state statute that defines what a protected class is and then insert it into our guidelines. But that would probably be the best way to go.
Okay. Ms. Cavalman, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to add, I worked 13 years for the Department of Rehabilitation Services, and I think it's under Section 504, the Americans with Disabilities Act, that covers that.
Okay. Sam, Steve, are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, Mr. Hoblet, you'll provide a recommended update to that we can look at and discuss next week prior to voting?
Well,
Go ahead, Sam.
if we're gonna make changes like that to it, shouldn't we make changes and then talk about it at the next cow? Like Ed?
If you would like to. I didn't think that it was a significant change.
Adding the class,
but
yeah, I think adding classes is a pretty significant change. I thought. I mean, there's no
depends on how elaborate Mr. Hoblet wants to get with this language.
To be honest, I'd have a degree, and I didn't anticipate this particular issue. I would have to say I'd agree with Mr. Downs that probably should be moved over to the next cow while we
Okay.
get this language added in.
Okay. You guys are fine with that? He'll bring it back at the next cow. Moving on to item number 17. It is the discussion of purchase of 2 used vehicles for the fire department using $65,000 in capital expense funds. Chief Donofsky.
Over the last couple of weeks, I've been working on looking at some used vehicles to replace one that we have out of service right now and one that's 1997 that's completely dilapidated. It was put into the budget earlier this year, $65,000 in capital expenses to either purchase one new vehicle or possibly two used vehicles. So I went the two used vehicle route. I put out a kind of a request for bid, kind of a wish list to all three dealerships here in town. I found that in shopping for used vehicles, especially with the council set up the way it is, that it's not totally feasible to try to find a used vehicle and have them hold it until the city council can approve it. So it posed some problems. And with the budget and the parameters that I gave them, and used vehicles being the way they are, we found it hard to compare vehicles between each other like apples to apples. So I've got different responses back from all three dealerships, and my conclusion was that a couple of the vehicles didn't appeal to me. A couple of them had high mileage, or the wrong color, or what have you. So I'm thinking that I should scrap this idea, and I'd like to, with your permission, go out for bid for either the half-ton or the three-quarter-ton truck that I was looking at, and test the waters to see what the dealerships can do as they close up their 2020 season, going to 21 season, and see what kind of bids we can get back on a vehicle right now for like a 21. I did talk to all three dealerships, whether it be their managers or the owners, and it's much easier for them to come back and be comparative with each other if we put out, you know, a bid. So with your permission, I'd like to do that and come back on the 29th with some answers and hopefully see what we can do with that money. I did talk to Treasurer Conzo earlier. He thought that maybe going after two vehicles at this time would be not feasible, or just to wait and see. You know, we do have a need for one, so see what we can come back with one, and then maybe later into the fiscal year, see about getting a second one to replace the dilapidated one that we have. So Kevin needs to speak.
Alderman Bateman.
So $65,000, all three dealerships should be able to come up with as long as your wish list isn't huge, like sunroofs and stuff. You know,
basic.
So you're not buying trucks like what I drive. So, but
Or me.
But you should be able to purchase a new one and still have a significant amount of money left over to purchase a used one to fulfill the needs of the other one, which would then leave you a broader stroke with the brush of once you get it down to just one, the council could approve spending the leftover money, and then you could just purchase it once the council approves the dollar amount.
Correct. That's kind of what I was coming here tonight to do, would be to ask for leniency and not have to come back every time when we had one or two vehicles that fit our needs, but having the leniency to just purchase the vehicle within the parameters that the council approved, and not have to come here for a vote and then maybe lose the truck or whatever over the next week and a half until the next voting session.
I totally agree. If you're going used, the first one, if you're buying a new one,
right?
Bring forth the bid. The dealership can hold that bid, hold that vehicle for that amount of time for a voting session. Then once we get to you're purchasing a used one, I totally agree. We would vote on a dollar amount and leave it at your discretion, because with the state of the economy and the automotive industry, dealerships are taking every sale they can get. Lots are empty now, so they're actually buying used vehicles to sell and buying new vehicles to sell. So I agree with that,
So with
taking
your,
that approach.
with your permission, I want to put out the bid, and ask the dealers to bid a 1/2 ton and a 3/4 ton truck under the specs that I have, sealed bids to be delivered to the city clerk, by the 29th, and then we can open them here at the Cow. Am I saying that right or no? Oh, she doesn't like opening them up in here, so maybe we can do it at the department head meeting on Tuesday, the 29th, and then bring those forward to the council for you to look at, and we can decide then whether we want to proceed with purchasing one or wait and look down the road. So,
You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you,
Chief. Okay, moving down to announcements. We got a couple things on here. The first one, Peggy, did you want to talk about the photo that we take, the cancer awareness one? Are you okay with that date that I sent you? Okay, so every year we take the photo wearing a pink shirt, and this year a mask of your choice, and that's for the Cancer Awareness Month. Lincoln Daily News will be doing that. So if you guys are okay with that, we'll do that on October 5th. And Nyla has asked if we can do that 15 minutes prior to the meeting. So we'll send a reminder out just to everybody to show up 15 minutes early for that one on October 5th. Another item that I've got on here is the picnic tables that were placed out for the outdoor dining when restaurants were a little more restricted. We're going to have a conversation about when we want to pick those up and how we want to address that, because once snow starts falling, then it becomes more of a task for the streets and alley department. So in the department head meeting today, Walt brought this up, and I told him that I'd bring it up to you guys. So how would you like to handle this issue? You want to set a date? Kevin, you were pretty instrumental in helping get this set up. Did you want to talk with those businesses and then come back to us? How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I can do that, because quite honestly, we're down to a handful of businesses that are actively using the tables on a regular basis. So I can reach out to all of them and make sure, now that indoor dining is open, and come back with a date of when they think they're going to close it off for outdoor seating.
Okay, Alderman Parrott.
So this would be for all picnic tables, whether they're on the street or not on the street.
Correct. Because we do have a couple or three that I know of that the picnic tables are not on the street. They're actually in their parking lot. One of them is Chances Are. I think the bowling alley still has a couple.
Yeah, I think
There's eight businesses that has city picnic tables.
But I think there's only three that have them that are not on the street. Yes.
Okay, so you'll bring that back to us at the next Cal. Can we talk about it then? Yes. Okay. And next item I have, Ms. Cavalman, did you want to talk about we need a council direction on the economic development grant application? You sent the draft to the council?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We've worked on this, and the way the draft comes out, there's the yellow part with the draft on top. So once everybody gives me their input again, if they want beforehand, or we can go over it, but we probably don't want to do that tonight, do we?
No.
Okay. No. So if you want to send me your changes or corrections or whatever you'd like to, revisions, please send those to me, like probably within the next couple days, and I'll try to finalize another draft to bring back to the council. Are we going to do that for the next Monday's meeting, the 21st?
It's up to the council, how they'd like to do it.
Okay.
So provide your feedback to Ms. Cavalman. She'll bring it back on the meeting for the 21st for action. So we're going to place that on the agenda then, the regular agenda. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I also was asked by Alderman Hoinaki to share this with you guys. You have, I believe, one of these flyers on your desk, and we can share this on social media as well. This is an invitation to the Dugan Center. It's at the 1500 North McLean Street, and if you haven't seen the pictures online or what this is about, they've basically set up a location where that you can go and work out of. So there's business suites, event space, and co-working opportunities. There are fees involved with it. It's like renting office space for the day. You know, we're all working in different setups right now. Some of us remote. So they are having a new business launch party on May 21st, Monday the 21st. Of September from 5 to 7 p.m. at their location of 1500 North McLean. So if you are interested in attending, please do. I know I'm gonna make an attempt to get there prior to the council meeting. Does anybody else have any other announcements? Alderman Bateman.
I meant to say this last week and I forgot, but I'd like to thank former Mayor Goodman for putting on the balloon festival. It was obviously Mother Nature helped out. It was tremendous. I'd like to thank each and every person that came out to my wife and I's residence. We had an enormous crowd. Some of the local media outlets estimated at 300 people at our place. We only had 3 balloons. We had plenty of room for more. We ended up with, I think, 5 took off Sunday morning from our residence. I'd like to thank those people that came out. There was absolutely no issues. There was no problems, no traffic jams, nothing. I have no street lights or anything. It is totally dark, so the balloon glow was awesome. But that whole weekend, my wife and I went uptown Friday night for the band that was on the street. That was a great crowd, and I think, pandemic or not, those are the things we gotta promote for this city. Even if they're short times, they're good times, and they show small town spirit. They show initiative of trying to make things happen even in the worst of times. And I think Lincoln really shined that weekend and showed that we can put on an event in the middle of a pandemic without problems. I don't know of any problems that happened. I hadn't heard any, but it was an awesome event. And I'd like to thank the citizens for participating, opening up for the people that came in from out of town, and just, having a great weekend and showing that we can really pull something together in the darkest of times to make this city shine.
Alderman Parrott.
Yeah, I was driving around the downtown a little bit that night too, and that evening, and there was a vendor out here, and I don't know what they were, some type of ice cream, bee something.
The acai.
What was that? That was. Did they have? What was it?
It was acai something or other. I didn't. Yeah, it was healthy foods is what it was. It was a healthy food option that Lisa Drew had reached out to me about and asked if they could set up. So the county, the county actually accommodated them. They parked on the county property. So
Well, and I just noticed that there's other like things going on across the city. We picked up some corn dogs this Saturday out at Big R, and
Yep.
I think there's some other vendors that are happening across the city. So that's cool. That's nice.
Colors Fries is behind the Lincoln Banquet Center this week.
Yes.
So if you didn't get, none of us got fair food this year. So
Exactly. Those corn dogs were good.
Yep.
They were at Big R.
And they're there every Saturday, I think, the month of September.
Yep.
In the evening, Steve, or in the
Afternoons.
afternoons?
Lunchtime, I think.
Okay, and then the one other thing that I thought of when Kevin brought up the Balloon Fest. So typically we, I think it's tradition to honor the outgoing council members with plaques. I did happen to get one for former Mayor Goodman. And so I'd like to bring him in next week and present that to him as, you know, a token of our appreciation for his efforts and contributions to the city. So I've already talked with him about that, and he's okay with that. So I'll take care of that. And then last but not least is our weekly COVID update. So had a couple individuals reach out to me. I had one, I spoke with her this afternoon. She's very concerned about the safety of herself and others, and very observant of how things are going throughout the community, and shared her feedback. So that and other feedback prompted me to reach out to Mr. Cavey at the Logan County Health Department. I had a very good conversation with him. My question was, as you guys have all seen, the numbers are going up, right? And so I asked his opinion on why he felt that was. And, you know, they can't obviously pinpoint one thing. There's no big event that caused that. But it's just that people are starting to get a little bit more relaxed. They're starting to go out. I think people are very frustrated, some people, and they're not taking the necessary precautions. So with that, and he did mention the fact that school is back in. Activities are starting to get back to normal, like in worship services and things of that nature. So I would just remind everybody moving forward, while you're out and about doing those things and spending time with your family and others, just please be mindful of the people around you. And as I've said before, regardless of how you feel about the idea of masks, please wear a mask if you're around others. You don't know what they may be dealing with, and practice your social distancing, and sanitize often. Just be mindful of others. Alderman Keller.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just to tag on to that, as the city representative to the Logan County Health Department, we did meet last night, and as Mayor Welch said, numbers go up. I think we're at 401 as of today, which we were just 2 months ago, we were at 40. The good news, we're still in the orange, which we're one of 30 counties in the orange county category, which is the warning category. The good news is, though, is that Mr. Cavey did some surveying of other counties and around us, McLean, Tazewell, Mason, Menard, Sangamon, Macon, and DeWitt. And of all those counties, there's only one of them that's lower than us as far as case fatality rate. So, and I think that is in no small task and no small part to the Logan County Health Department's efforts to really be very mindful of the regulations that they're passing on, as well as the contact tracing that they're doing. They're working quite hard in trying to ensure that all the cases their contacts are being made to prevent and forestall any further contact of anybody who has possible COVID. And so also, they did want to say that obviously with the election season coming up, there are people who are very leery about getting out to vote. And I did pose the question about voting polls and voting places and what's being done to protect individuals. And they said that there is obviously very strenuous cleaning. In fact, every time a machine is used, they will wipe it down. Social distancing will be practiced. Masks will be required. So if anybody is a little frightened and leery about going out to exercise your right to vote, don't let COVID stop you if you can. Please exercise that right to vote. Of course, there's always the absentee option as well. So as Mayor Welch said, I also would say continue to mask up and take all the precautions we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Alderman Keller made the motion.
Second.
Alderman Parrott, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?